I have a friend who asked me about car batteries, and I told him to watch my video on 12-volt battery voltages, which I'll leave in the description below. He told me he'd already seen it and still has some questions. Now, with the lockdown, he'd like to know how often he should start his car and how long it should be running to maintain optimal battery maintenance. First of all, the mechanical part of the car also needs to be taken into account. The engine needs to warm up and the lubricating oil needs to reach all the parts, and that also takes time. So, we shouldn't neglect one thing for the sake of another. Everything is important. But the part we're going to cover here is the electrical part, which is what my friend is interested in. Even so, the data will be very general and will depend on each case. Gasoline or diesel, the engine displacement, the starter motor consumption, and, of course, the condition, capacity, and age of the battery. To give you specifics, I'm going to use my own car. In my case, a jump start requires a current of between 200–300 amps. For the example, we'll use 250 amps, and the jump start lasts between 1 and 4 seconds, more or less. We'll use 2 seconds for the example. Well, we multiply 250 by 2, and that gives us a total current of 500 amps. Now let's look at battery recharging. Battery recharging is between 1 amp and 5 amps. It depends on the battery level, its condition, the type of battery, and many things. That's why more or less amperage will circulate. We'll use 3 amps as an example. To recover the 500 amps from the jump start, we divide them by 3 amps, and that gives us a total of 166 seconds, which is 2 minutes 46 seconds. This means that in less than 3 minutes, the battery has recovered its level to where it was before starting the car. Of course, you need to let it run for a few more minutes to get more power. I explained the levels in my video about 12-volt battery voltages, but 5 or 10 minutes would be ideal if we also want to move the engine parts. If we want to fully charge it, it could take more than 2 hours. Of course, that depends on what I said before: the current battery level, the type of battery, its condition, its age, and its capacity. My friend asked me more questions. How long could I use the starter motor until the battery runs out? I've already said it depends on the current battery level. My battery, for example, is 56 amps per hour. That's the capacity. That's the amount it holds. It's not the maximum current it can supply at any given time. The maximum current it can supply is close to 300 amps. My battery is 56 amps per hour. That means it could supply 56 amps for 1 hour or until it runs out. The 56 amp hour battery, I can continuously use twice that amperage, or 112 amps, in half an hour, and 224 amps in 15 minutes. So I could use the starter motor for just over 10 minutes, but that would drain the battery to its limit, and that's not recommended. And finally, how often should you jumpstart a vehicle that isn't being used? There are several factors to consider, such as the vehicle's standby power consumption. For example, my vehicle consumes 5 milliamps on standby. And other factors to consider, as we mentioned before: the level, condition, type of battery, its age, and its capacity. A new battery isn't the same as an old one. You'll notice when you're about to start it if the car is struggling more. So it's difficult to give a specific date. As a general recommendation, we could say that a minimum weekly start of at least 5 minutes should be sufficient to maintain the good condition of the battery and engine.